and welcome back to the Get Loved Up podcast. I am so excited today to introduce you to a friend of mine. Her name is Brialle Ringer. She is making strides in the world, and we've known each other for, I think, about 4 years. How are you doing, Brialle? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Koya, it is so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Me and Brialle go way back. When I first started the Get Loved Up yoga teacher training, Brialle was there helping me out. And one thing that stands out about you, Brialle, is that you are so down for community. You're always helping and looking out for others. And I really want to understand a little bit about how you got to where you are today. And I know we've had our journey together, but I want to go back before that and really talk about your journey of self-love and how you've nurtured yourself throughout, your life to be in a place now where you're able to pour into others.
Yes. When I think about my self-love journey, I feel like when I decided to go natural with my curly hair and really embrace this fabulous afro of mine was a huge part of my self-love journey. At that point in time, I was going to college. I was in about my second year of school at Eastern Michigan University. And prior to that, I had really, I grew up in a predominantly white area. So, my mom's side of the family is white, father's side of the family is Black, grew up in a really small rural area and pretty much assimilated for social survival and, was like chemically relaxing my hair and straightening my hair every day. And then, in high school, and then first year of college, I started to wear extensions. And I just really got away from loving myself just as I was. And I started to notice that. And I was like, all right, well, something's got to change. So let's just toss the extensions out, give away the flat iron, stop relaxing the hair. And that was a really huge point of me, starting to embrace who I was. And I remember a really uncomfortable period of that because I was like, I don't even know what to do with this natural texture of my hair. And, little by little just started to really come home to myself. And I think that that's really the heart of self-love and healing is a returning home to who we truly are. And when I think back to childhood Brialle, free-spirited, wearing fairy wings and crystals and curly hair. And so I was returning to that part of myself when I began my self-love journey.
I absolutely love that. And I love your fro. Fro. I love my locks, but sometimes I miss the fro. The locks are great for lifestyle, but that full fro, it just speaks. I'm me. I am being. Mm-hmm. And I love the natural look because I feel like I too as well went many years wearing wigs, chemically relaxed hair. And there's nothing wrong with all that. Mm-hmm. It's just that when I released it and when I looked at my kinky hair, just like you said, I didn't know what to do with it. And I was like, okay, where's the next style? Because I didn't know how to manage it. So in learning to care for your hair, because I feel like this is something we haven't really tapped on a lot in the podcast. So I want to kind of dive into it a little bit. And caring for your hair, what were the first things that you really noticed that helped you take good care of your hair?
Yeah, finding a hairstylist that was, knew how to care for natural hair. And so helped me to, trim and cut out some of that relaxed hair. And not only that, she was it was like a little home kind of back of her home shop. And she had this magazine that she was showing me. She's like, okay, you can do this style, you can do this. And she taught me how to do twist outs that were really helpful for, getting the right kind of, there is no right texture, but getting a really nice kind of curl defined texture for myself, especially as I was transitioning and my curl pattern wasn't consistent. So having someone that was helping me and guiding me hey, try these products. Hey, try to style it this way. That was super helpful for me. So many YouTube videos, some successful, some not, getting curious and just playing around with products and videos and styles. And yeah, just having patience was really important as I was learning how to care for my hair.
I love that you said patience, because that's exactly what I felt. I got some pictures of my afro when it was so big. And when I straightened, it was like halfway down my back. But talk about patience. It took me at least 4 hours to condition and wash. And then if I wanted to blow dry it, that was a whole extra couple hours. So, and I love that you said YouTube. I call YouTube University, because that is where I fell in love with my natural hair. To see other women who look like me or similar having the head full of 4C. I have a lot of different curl patterns in my hair. It's just like so many different patterns. And so to see other women and how they did their hair and how they love their hair, that really did help me. And also going to Agape and seeing so many people with locks, that helped me realize like, oh, this is a style that is natural, it's healthy, and is low maintenance. Because at the end of the day, I was like, I love my afro, I love wearing it out, but I need something low maintenance because I love jumping in the ocean a lot, as you do. And I love just the freedom. So for those listening, can you share some of your go-tos in how you care for your hair that is just like whatever tips or whatever you can share is going to help someone who's like, oh, I want to wear my natural hair like Bria. I can't really afford a stylist right now. And, I can watch YouTube videos, but can you share with them some of your main tips when it comes to maintaining your natural hair?
Yeah, absolutely. Deep conditioning, like every other week or even once a week, that was a big game changer for me. And whether you're buying a deep conditioner or making your own, experimenting and finding what works for your hair. I really like, organic vegan products if I'm going to buy something, so that, it's quality, it's good for my hair, it's not like causing any reactions. I have sensitive skin and just sensitive to scents in general. But you can also make your own if you're on a budget. There's lots of great recipes that are out there. Again, hit up YouTube University. And so deep conditioning, twist outs are like a favorite of mine. And you can look up 2-strand twists to, play around and see how that goes for your hair. For other people, doing braids might be helpful for maintaining the texture and just bringing more softness to it. So those are a couple of tips to experiment with and really truly have patience and compassion for yourself. Don't work with your hair when you're frustrated. Just put it in a bun or put a wrap on it and come back to it when you have the time and patience.
That wrap or bun, that's like a lifesaver. That was like my favorite go-to. I was like, let me just put it in a ponytail.
Yep.
I love that. Well, I definitely think people are going to love those tips. And when it also comes to, you mentioned, vegan, and, I'm vegan as well. So can you talk a little bit about your vegan journey and why you chose to live the vegan lifestyle?
Absolutely. So I was actually 11 years old when I first went vegetarian, 10 or 11, first one in my family to do it. My parents say I was inspired by Lisa Simpson from the TV show The Simpsons. And there must have been an episode where she was talking about being vegetarian. I was like, wait, hold up. Like, meat comes from animals. I love animals, Growing up as an only child, I always found friendship and compassion in animals. And so I didn't want to eat my friends, basically. And thankfully, my mom was really supportive. My family, supported me in that and was able to sustain that. But as I started to get older and learn a little bit more, when I was about 20, 21 or so is when I went vegan. And that was after I watched the documentary, What the Health. And that just really opened my eyes up to, okay, I had already been feeling a sense that like I was ready to take the next step. But that documentary really helped me to see, the connection of the environment, our health, even environmental racism. And that by being vegetarian, while that was a great first step, that I was still contributing to harm to animals, to female cows, to the environment and to my own health by consuming dairy. And so I made the switch after I watched that documentary and, have been vegan now for about a little over 3 years. I eventually also went on to get certified in plant-based nutrition shortly after my grandfather passed away from a heart attack after a couple of years suffering with type 2 diabetes. And, at that time I was living in California. I was surrounded in this health and wellness industry. I had a world of information for myself around health. And I was just like, I got to share this in a bigger way. I know too much to have other people that I know and love to be suffering from these preventable diseases. And, a heart attack, heart disease and diabetes are both not only preventable, but reversible with a plant-based diet. And it happens pretty rapidly, actually. And so that's when I decided, I'm going to go and get this plant-based nutrition certification, and really just declared that the cycle of illness and death from preventable disease in my lineage ends with me.
I love that. I love everything about that. You actually inspired me to get my certification in plant-based nutrition as well, because I just learned, I was like, I never got a certification. I've just been learning from all these great documentaries and all these great teachers. But I think it is important when you want to start teaching, and I wanted to be a big part of the yoga teacher training, that you have those certifications. And anyone listening, if you want to dive deeper, I think, getting that plant-based nutrition certification is very, very key to understanding how food impacts our body, impacts others, and impacts our world. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And so I want to talk a little bit about kind of your journey and how you went through the Get Loved Up yoga teacher training. Brialle is an amazing Get Loved Up alumni. And I feel like as an alumni, you really represent what I see and feel that I want to happen with most students as they come through the program. You come through the program, you got your education, and it wasn't just right away that things start to happen. You worked hard for a while. You got your plant-based nutrition certification. You work with a coach. You did some more things, and I've just seen you continue to grow. Can you really share a little bit about your journey with the Get Loved Up yoga teacher training and into where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got certified, I want to say a little over 2 years ago. And I didn't start teaching right off the bat, which I think is common for a lot of teachers. I felt empowered with so many resources, and like I had learned from the best and the brightest. Shout out Koya. But there was still that like part of myself that didn't feel confident in stepping out on my own, and like I was ready to really cultivate something for people and hold space for people. So there was a part of me that still needed healing. And that was really what was holding me back from like shining fully, was my own things that still needed to be healed before I was ready to support other people in their healing. Despite the fact that I had been engaged in that work for a long time, I acknowledged that there was more work to do. And so that kind of led me to, one, I returned home. I was living in California, and I went home back to Detroit, Michigan, and lived with my grandmother for a little over a year, because I was spending a lot of money in California, and I realized like I need to be investing in my business. And I was like, what is it going to take for me to make the investments that I need in professional development, personal development, coaches, et cetera. And I had this opportunity to go live with my grandmother and get that support, and also to support her after her husband just died. And so it was really beautiful, and super grateful to her. And, I got engaged with this program called the Landmark Forum. And Landmark is basically a personal development program, professional development program. And, just had some really massive breakthroughs in that work of discovering what was holding me back from the past, and that I was like really carrying into my future, the limiting beliefs, the, relationships in my life, that there was something left incomplete, and really working in that area consistently for about a year. I did their first program, which was like 3 days, had amazing results, and stayed connected. One of the big breakthroughs that I got was like realizing the heart of why I didn't feel worthy of what I was trying to create for myself. And it brought me back to, being 4 years old, and coming home one day and my mom's like, Dad doesn't live here anymore. And just like in that moment, little four-year-old Brialle, what I said to try to make that okay was, you don't matter. Basically, it's fine that he's gone. He doesn't matter. And so you don't matter was following me for my whole life. And I just really got the impact of that and all the ways that it was showing up. It was like not being fully present to the love that was in my life and pushing it away or self-sabotaging because you don't matter, And while it's said outwardly to others, it's also said inwardly. I don't matter. So my goals don't really matter. I'm not really going to go all in on it. And when I really got that and discovered that, and not only discovered it for myself, but shared it with people in my life, like my father, my parents, and, my past relationships romantically. And I was able to then declare a new possibility of like, I do matter. I'm worthy of everything that I desire. And I'm going to go out and make a beautiful life and be present to all the love that's available to me and go all in. And that really allowed me to say yes to having a coach and to investing in a business coach and feeling worthy of that investment, which was a huge game changer to have someone to, meet with one-on-one every other week to like go through all the things and help me create my first course and launch my website and everything. So those were some of the really key parts of my healing journey, which helped me then manifest, a successful business and support others in their healing.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know it's not easy to go all the way back, especially to when you were a child and realize that those things still have an impact. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I love how you said, I was carrying that limiting belief of not mattering for a long time, because I feel like a lot of people listening are carrying, I'm not enough. I don't matter. I'm not worthy. And that can block you from so many blessings. So thank you for sharing that.
So much.
A lot of people can go and realize, what is it that I'm telling myself? What limiting beliefs do I have that I'm not realizing, that I'm not expressing or holding me back? And I also know, you kind of touched a little bit on relationships. And I know that in your past, you've had, relationships, you've experienced sexual trauma. Can you talk a little bit about how that also affected you and how you worked through that situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, experienced sexual trauma when I was 17. And I think for a really long time, I just kind of denied that and repressed that and didn't really own that was an experience that had happened to me. And being in college, I was at this survivor speak out, listening to other people's stories, and really heard a lot of myself in their stories, and was moved to get up on stage and share. Had no intention going into it to do so. And really, started to acknowledge that this is something that has happened. I'm a survivor of sexual assault. And even then, when I began to name it, I was still not ready to talk about it and really heal from it. So I was in therapy, but that was a place that was off limits at the time. And what really, brought me into committing to healing myself holistically was my body. My body was calling me to heal. I started to experience physical manifestations of this unresolved emotional and sexual trauma. And how that was showing up for me was, recurring reproductive health challenges. I had a cyst surgically removed from my right ovary. I was getting UTIs. I had a pap smear that came back abnormal, HPV diagnosis. I was really healthy except for in this one area. And I was having all of these consistent challenges. And I was like, what is going on? I need to figure this out. And was sharing with a friend who was like, you should check out the chakras. And I was like, okay, tell me more. And she shared with me, when I'm experiencing something physically, often I find that there's an emotional root cause of that symptom. And that really resonated for me. And so I got home and I started researching, and I was like, okay, so what chakra goes with reproductive health challenges? And it was like the Svadhisthana, the sacral chakra. And I was like, okay, so what causes imbalance in this energy center? One of the first thing that pops up is sexual trauma. And this light bulb just went off for me. I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense, that this thing that I keep denying and avoiding is coming up physically. And my body was literally calling me to heal. My body was like, please pay attention, girl. Please take care of us. And so I decided to answer the call, that I was ready to answer the call and commit to my healing. And, that looked like researching again, what can I do to heal my sacral chakra? Praying and calling in the support that I needed to do that healing work. Literally just laying my hands on my womb space and like breathing and playing frequencies, sound frequencies that aligned with that energy center, and just being present to whatever came up. And it was really uncomfortable. It was painful physically. I felt the energy shifting in my body. I was also dancing and swaying my hips and like hula hooping and doing yoga and hip openers and, eating orange foods, all types of things. Literally anything I read that was good, I was doing it. And I was also like, a really big part for me was reclaiming pleasure, because when that happened, it felt like pleasure was not my own. And so I was calling it back and reclaiming that, like, I could give myself pleasure and that this is my body to decide what to do with. And that looked like taking long baths and creating a relationship with my yoni, because I had disconnected from that part of my body for a long time. And just getting curious and exploring and playing. And I mean, I felt the shifts energetically of feeling way more creative, like feeling more orgasmic bliss in my life. And so when I went back to the doctor about 6 months later, after doing this work on the daily, my pap smear came back normal. Everything came back normal. I had fully healed myself and, have not had issues since. And this was after suffering for about 2 or 3 years consistently with reproductive health challenges. And so I was like, okay, this is energy, this mind body connection, this is real. I got to tell everybody. And before that, I was getting my degree in social work. I did end up finishing that degree and get my bachelor's in social work, but that is really what inspired me to get into the wellness industry, because I was like, I want to empower other people with the power to heal themselves and help them remember that everything that they need is within themselves. And they really do have the power to heal and transform.
That is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, because I feel like people need to hear it, like kind of raw. Like you said, like this was going on. This is what I was having. And then I did all of these things. And I love that you didn't say, I just did one thing, because I remember when I met you, you were hula hooping and, you were hula hooping, you were eating oranges, you were doing energy work and all of these things, because I think some people want that one thing, that one key, what's going to do it for me. And the truth is there's a plethora of ways to balance your energy centers or balance your chakras, as you could call it, chakras. People have different pronunciations, but it's our spiritual energy centers. And a lot of people like to say their issues, they rest in your tissues. Mm-hmm. And the first person I researched was Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. And knowing that all of these emotions, if you don't take care of them, if you don't pay attention to them, if you don't express them, they will go into your body somewhere and they will chill there until you address them and nurture them. And I feel like, just listening to you talk, like my heart is just like, wow, like this is so beautiful, because if every person listening could track back to emotion they had that made them angry or sad or resentful and took the time to kind of nurture it, like you just shared, that energy has the opportunity to release. And there's not one magic ticket. I think every person has their own journey, as you shared, to releasing over time, and the more work you've done, I don't know if you feel this as well, but the more work you do, the more release happens.
Yes, absolutely. Because at that point I was feeling like, okay, I had gone from, denying that it happened to then I was like, okay, I'm a survivor of sexual assault. And then, I was like, no, I'm sexually liberated. And I started, after the biggest breakthrough that I had around really freeing myself, was realizing that in all of that, I was still identifying with my trauma and I was still carrying that forward. It was basically like, hello, my name's Brialle, I'm a survivor of sexual assault. And, that was empowering for me for a bit. I think it was an important part of my journey. But what really freed me was forgiveness and actually calling the person that the situation happened with and just addressing the conflict at the source, and calling the person, with the support of a coach and a program. I was in Landmark at the time, and calling and just sharing a conversation about like, hey, 7 years ago, this thing happened. This was the impact that it had on me. I take full responsibility for the impact that I allowed it to have, because what happened, but everything after that, that was me. I was in control of my life. And I am creating the possibility of forgiveness and peace and freedom. And I don't want to have a connection or relationship with you. This is just a conversation for completion. And that was actually my first time I had ever shared with that person that was my experience, that moment was non-consensual for me. It was something that I had been holding on to and I had never shared with that person directly. And when I did, he was really taken aback and was like, I had no idea that was your experience of that. That's not my experience at that moment, but I'm absolutely not going to challenge you or deny what your experience was. That in itself was like, really heart opening for me, that he just listened and witnessed me and didn't try to challenge or deny my experience. And he asked what he could do to support my healing. He's like, if you ever need anything, please reach out to me. And in that moment, all of the stories that I had about him being this malicious person who willfully and intentionally caused me harm started to melt away. And I was like, this is another human being who caused harm. As humans, we cause harm, we experience harm. He didn't even know he caused harm because I never gave him the opportunity to be accountable, because I never shared. And I mean, it was like a 5 or 10 minute conversation that I just felt so much lighter and so much freer after, and truly forgiving and at peace.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know it's not easy to share, and especially not wanting to identify, but I know so many people listening who might have had a similar experience where it might feel unconsensual or gray. And just having the conversation does open up that space for forgiveness, not only forgiveness of the other person, but also forgiveness of self. So
yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and knowing that, hey, it's okay. Even if it was 7 years later, it's still okay if that's what you need to have the conversation. And also mentioning that you had support and you were supported, and knowing that we all have this journey. And I feel like another thing that you said stood out is that you took responsibility for the impact it had for you after the incident. And I think that when we deal with trauma, because of the impact, because of the emotional impact, because of the physical impact, it's really easy to make it last even longer, especially if there's a lot of resentment and especially depending on how things happen. And I feel like the healing for me as well was insane. I don't want to take this anger, this grief, this shame, this whatever feeling is outside of love into my future anymore. So in the present, let me address it, heal it, express it so that I can move forward even lighter. So I love that you shared that moment of choosing to release, because I feel like that's empowering. And I feel like we oftentimes give our power away to trauma, to past situations, and we can't help that what we experience, but we can decide that we want to change that experience. And I think that is the most empowering thing you can do. So thank you so much for sharing that.
With everything going on in the world, now is a perfect time to pour into yourself. If you've been thinking about joining the wellness community and learning more about your health and wellness and how to improve the well-being of others, then the Get Loved Up Holistic Health and Yoga Teacher Training is for you. We have a variety of offerings from the 100 hour to get a taste of how holistic health and yoga can bless your life, and the 200 to 500 hours to deep dive into the study of how meditation, breathwork, yoga, and mindful living can transform your health and the health of our world. Go to koyawebb.com/YTT for more details. I'll see you there.
Yes.
One thing that I also want to talk about is, what you're doing now, which is now you have built your company and you have your program. So I want you to share a little bit about going from that journey of healing your body into deciding what you want to give back and what you want to share with the world.
Absolutely. So after I got my certification in yoga from Get Loved Up and then my plant-based nutrition certification, I was really feeling like I wanted to integrate and to what can I share with the world that are all of the tools that have helped me heal and might empower someone else to take their healing into their own hands. And so it inspired me to, go back to the chakras and to create a 7-week course inspired by the chakras to, support people uncovering how past stress and traumas are impacting their emotional health, physical health, personality, and really starting to identify how much of who we say we are and who we've been and how we've been showing up is actually the wound. And those subconscious beliefs that are showing up in our life and carrying us forward. And so starting to become really self-aware. So it's a journey of self-discovery. And then you get empowered with tools for holistic health and healing like yoga, meditation, mindfulness, plant-based nutrition. And also a really big part of it is open discussion and sharing vulnerably and being witnessed. And so, doing that in a supportive community where you get to explore, what did you inherit around beliefs about money and abundance from your parents, from your ancestors? Where are you feeling empowered? Where are you feeling restricted? What has been most impactful in your self-love journey? Asking those kind of questions of ourselves and having the opportunity to be witnessed as we remember and come home to ourselves is so empowering and such a beautiful experience. So that's what I guide now in my course. It's called Getting Free, The Journey Within. And it's a 7-week holistic healing experience in the support of a beloved community. So that's my main offering these days, where I get to share all of the tools that have been really empowering for myself and the clients that I've worked with now.
I love that. Getting free. So
yes.
Cool. And I think the holistic journey is one that when we're able to look at the mind, the body, and the soul collectively, holistically, that is the only way I feel we can have true healing, full circle. And if we don't, there's always a part that we have an opportunity to tap into. So thank you so much for your Getting Free program. I hope people listening go check it out and check you out. And I also want to talk a little bit about recently you just started teaching at Get Loved Up Studios. I know it's something that I've been wanting to offer the community for a long time, just a live, there's so many pre-recorded sessions, but a live opportunity to be with you and to flow with you and to breathe with you. Can you talk a little bit about what it means for you to be there with the community live?
Yes, I love being live together, in this digital age, continuing to be amidst the pandemic. It's like, how can we connect? How can we be with one another? And so even just in the beginning, waiting for a class to start, like, hey, y'all, where are you calling in from? What's your intention today? And at the end of the class, like, share one word of how you're feeling. Or like, how are you going to carry this energy into the rest of your day? Even those like small moments are really helpful for connecting with one another at a time when it can be really easy to feel disconnected. So that's what I really love about being able to teach live. And it's so awesome to be with the Get Loved Up community that you have created and built up such a beautiful, wonderful community.
Thank you so much, Brialle. Well, I appreciate you being a huge part of that community, and also in the beginning helping me. And also my aunt it was during a time when she had Parkinson, and you were assisting me with, the training and also with her. And I feel like it was a time when, we were both in very strained situations. And I love how, within the movement of the universe, we didn't talk or we didn't see each other for a while because you moved back home to take care of your family. But I love how the world kind of brought us back together, because I've always just loved and adored your soul and your spirit. So can you talk a little bit about the journey of relationships, especially when it comes to, because from my experience, I really feel like people are with you for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you have relationships, whatever people need to do to grow, you're away for a moment. But when people are meant to be in your life, you have this opportunity of circling back. And that's what I feel like with our relationship. We had this moment we were together, both helping each other in different ways. And then it was like, where's Brialle? I would see you every now and then on social. And then now it's like so integrated with Get Loved Up, with the Get Loved Up community. But I really feel like in a strong way, like when I first met you, and I think it was like online on Instagram, you hula hooping and seeing your energy and be like, she's cool. And then at Agape, and then you were just like, you know what? I want to do something. I want to do this. And I was like, I need help. And then from there, I just really love our journey together. And I just wanted to say just how much it meant to me to have you in my life at that very tender time of being at the beginning of starting the Get Loved Up yoga teacher training, and also the very tender time of caretaking for a very sick aunt. And I just want to honor you for being a sister, being a friend, and also helping me with your gifts and talents and skills, because it meant the world to me. And I just adore and appreciate you so very much.
Thank you so much. I think we came into each other's lives at the perfect moment. When I got to LA, I was calling in a mentor because I had just got my degree in social work and wanted to completely pivot. I was like, I don't even know where to begin. I need somebody help me. Ancestors, spirit guides, send me somebody. And then you messaged me on Instagram like, hey, come to my class. I was like, bless, okay. And we just really hit it off. And at that point, I was living in a van, doing the van life thing with my partner at the time. And we had just separated. And I was like, I'm staying in LA. I have no money, no job, no vehicle, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to stay in LA. And then you were like, I need a live-in personal assistant who loves yoga and veganism. I was like, girl, check, sign me up.
That's what it was. It was like, check. She's like, yoga, vegan, what? She's an angel for so many years. I'm like, oh, Brialle, she's an angel that I met at Agape.
Yeah, seriously. So it was perfect alignment. And I would say, in terms of us being able to maintain our connection, and for other people who are wanting to create community and relationships and mentorships, is communication has been key, because there have been moments where there was some friction and some things that we needed to talk through and work through together, and being able to be vulnerable and honest and be like, hey, this thing ain't working. Here's what we need to do to shift some energy here. And taking that time apart even was part of what we needed to shift and come back to this relationship. So thank you for just being such an incredible mentor to me. And everything that I learned in our time together, I continue to implement. And I'm just so grateful that we've been able to stay connected.
Me too. And thank you so much for saying that, because it's so hard to address conflict. And I think when we addressed our conflict, it was the beginning of the healing of our relationship and the birth of an even deeper relationship. Yeah. And I think it's so many people out there so afraid, like, oh, if I tell this person how I feel, they're not going to care. First of all, that's what a lot of people, they're not going to care. They're just going to like whatever, or deny it, or not hear me, or not listen. But I encourage everyone listening, like if you really value someone, and if you're willing to have the conversation, just as you did with the person that had offended you in your past, if you're willing to have the conversation, you will be surprised how sometimes your perspective and their perspective, like everyone is looking at things from a different lens, from a different perspective. And if you really value someone, having the courage sometimes, because sometimes it takes courage, especially if you're like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go. Maybe you tried a little bit in the past and it didn't work all the way, but having the courage to revisit and have the conversation. I feel like in all of my really strong relationships, there's been a point of moving through some type of conflict, or moving through like, oh, well, this didn't feel right, or that didn't go right. And I feel like those are the strongest relationships, because it's not like a perfect relationship. Like you have those perfect relationships like, oh, everything is like perfect. But I definitely feel like even business wise, like the strongest relationships are those relationships that move through conflict. You're able to talk to a person, you're able to share when you're kind of offended or felt something differently, or even think differently. There's some relationship you're like, I got to say yes to everything this person asks, or they're not going to love me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what a lot of people think, like, in order for this person to love me, I have to say yes, and I have to be who they want me to be. But I think the real beauty in our relationship is being able to say, hey, I love you, you love me, here's the conflict, and just move through it. And I'm just like, wow, like there's definitely one of the conflicts that I remember that makes my heart smile, because I remember being like, I don't know if I want to say this, but everything in my soul said, you should move in this direction. And it was like a total divine download for me saying, you need to address this right now. And I'm like, okay. And then we addressed it, and then we move forward. And now I'm just elated, because even this podcast is the continuation of a sisterhood that started way back then. We were like checking all each other's boxes. So I love that we were able to like return to love in our sisterhood, and now continue to support community together. It's just
absolutely
makes me smile.
Me too.
Okay, so I have like I like to do like a rapid fire at the end. So I'm going to ask you your favorite things for the community. Okay, so what has been your favorite movie during this last year or so?
Ooh, that's a good question. I have a hard time picking out favorites. I feel like I've been getting more into shows. I feel like I have a favorite show I could share. I really got into Good Trouble, was a good show that I started watching. I love the show Magicians. That's another one. Anything with magic, I'm down for. So those are a couple of the favorite things that I got into during this digital time.
Okay, Good Trouble. I mean, I haven't seen either one of those, so I have to put it on my list. Nice. Yes. And what about book?
Yes. Okay. I read this really great book, Restorative Yoga for Healing Racialized Trauma, something like that. It's by Dr. Gail Parker. It's incredible. It's a fairly quick read, has some really practical application things, just talking about the impact of racism on our nervous system, and how that gets stored in our bodies, and how restorative yoga can be really helpful for moving through that and bringing us some self-regulation, because the conversation around race and racism is triggering for people of all across the whole spectrum. And so how can we learn to regulate ourselves to build up our capacity for navigating and healing racism and white supremacy in America?
I love that. And it is the hard conversations. I remember you were one of the first people who would say like white supremacy. And I remember when I hear you, I was like, I don't want to say white supremacy. I don't want to think anyone supreme on me. I don't even like that word, you know? And I really didn't understand until I did the work and did the homework. And I love that you brought that up because last year when the situation happened with George Floyd, I had PTSD from a situation that happened in my childhood with my brother. And it took yoga, breath work, meditation a lot because I was also holding space in an online virtual yoga teacher training. So I didn't have much bandwidth to like be out for a week. And so doing those practices, doing the breath work, doing the yoga really helped me process that pain. Also I did EFT, emotional freedom technique to help me get through that very tough time. And all of the energy work compiled together helped because I was going outside and I remember I got in a car and I was just scared. I was just shaking and I'm like, why are you tripping? And, you know, instead of, you know, beating myself up, I was just like, you just need to get loved up. You just need to do all this work. And I ended up calling my brother. I ended up talking to my parents because at that time I was silenced. At that time, I couldn't tell my parents because my brother was nervous about getting in trouble. I couldn't really talk to him about it because he just wanted to, it was like, it didn't happen. So that trauma of seeing him get jumped, seeing him be held down like that stayed within me. So when I saw it again, I saw my brother and I was like, I didn't even know that I had held on to that until something triggered it. And I wanted to say that because we were talking about trauma. And sometimes you hold on to trauma and you don't know you have it until something triggers the memory. And I'm thankful because now I've released that from my body. And now, even when I remember I had a boyfriend who had a security suit and I just didn't like it, or sometimes I would see a car and I would have a certain feeling in my body. I remember I was in Atlanta with one of my friends and then really, sometimes the cops turn on their sirens right next to you and it startled me. I jumped like out of my seat and I realized that is all, I didn't even know it, but that was all part of the trauma and that deep-seated anger about what had happened. So I just love that, the issues in the tissues and talking about the energetic release of trauma has come up in this conversation because I feel like it's something that every single one of us, no matter if you've experienced, trauma on any spectrum, doing this breath work, doing the yoga, the restorative yoga, as you said, is going to help release that energy. So I'm going to get that book because I haven't read it. I want to check it out.
Yes. Okay. One thing I want to say really quick, just off of that, first of all, our triggers can be powerful teachers, and you sharing about, what happened, the murder of George Floyd, and really the uprisings around racial justice around that time. I wanted to mention another part of my work, which is in that moment, I was inspired to create the Black Women's Healing Fund, which is a scholarship program where I offer scholarships for Black women healing holistically and getting free for free and participating in my 7-week course. And so I was able to offer 30 scholarships and have a group of 30 Black women healing holistically together in the fall. And it was so beautiful, so powerful. And thanks to Mercy for Animals, who I just got a grant from recently, I'll be offering scholarships again this spring and summer with a deeper focus on plant-based nutrition. So if there are Black women that are listening to this and resources and finances have been a challenge for you, really having the support that you need to heal holistically, please reach out. I'll be opening up scholarship applications soon for that.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad we did not forget to touch on that.
Yes.
That is absolutely huge. That is such a blessing, so brilliant of you to even offer the opportunity, and so happy that, Mercy for Animals have, gave that grant. So many people can have the opportunity to work with you and heal as a collective, because I feel like that collective healing, it really helps push the needle forward. And a lot of people are like, well, there's a lot of people teaching yoga there, but I always say that no one is going to do it like you. And I love the fact that you realize, you know what? I matter. I matter and I do this in a certain way, and people have a need to hear it, and I am here to heal. And seeing you step into your power in that way is also, again, brings me so much great joy. And those 30 women, I know it's such a blessing. And y'all, if y'all are listening to this podcast, make sure you go check her out, sign up for her newsletter. So when that scholarship application hits, your name is on the list.
Yes.
And, yes. Okay. So one more last thing.
Okay.
Is, if you could wake up and it's Brialle's world, what would it look like?
Yes. There are gardens in every yard. Everyone has access to fresh, organic produce. Everyone is housed. Everyone is fed. Everyone has access to what they need to not just survive, but to thrive. All are aligned with their highest selves and the highest good of all beings on the planet. We are collectively liberated.
I love Brialle's world. I'm down for living in that world. Thank you so much. This has been so sweet. And I want, what we've recently done with Get Loved Up is that we've added the entrepreneurship portion or pillar to the company. And I think, you took that journey before it was part, but I would love for you to speak to, before we wrap up, just our goal with Get Loved Up is to educate in the areas of spirituality, well-being, and entrepreneurship. And with that, you could beautifully see your journey of connecting with yourself and getting well, and now, bridging that wellness for others. But can you share in your own world what that journey means to you and what that journey means for the people that you're working with?
Entrepreneurship has been such a fulfilling journey for me, because I feel like I'm living a dream that I had 5 years ago of, being burnt out in college and feeling like I knew I wanted a different way. I knew that there was a way to serve and support liberation, but do it in a way that felt sustainable for me. And so I just kept taking those little steps and really spiritually calling in when I needed. I called in a mentor and Koya appeared. I called in a coach and Lisa appeared. And I was just opening myself up to everything that I needed, and then answering and having the courage to take action when it did show up. And so entrepreneurship has been so fulfilling and empowering for me to be able to set my own schedule and, do work that I love. And it has been a challenging journey. So again, the same patience you have with your hair and your natural hair care journey, have some patience with your business, okay? Because it has taken time, and it has really taken, for the most part, healing what was incomplete in my life, healing those limiting beliefs, healing relationships with my parents. Those have been some really huge, crucial moments. And so, now being in a position where I drive my little eco-friendly Prius, I have so much gratitude, because I know what it's like to spend 3 hours on public transportation trying to get where you're going. To be able to be financially free feels so good, because I know what it's like to have negative in your bank account. And to have this security and stability, all while doing what I love and supporting others, and remembering their power to heal, remember who they truly are, come home to their bodies. It's incredible. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of long nights and days putting in the work in the back end, but it's so worth it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. You are doing it beautifully. And I'm just so happy to share your courses, your energy, your spirit, everything that you are with the Get Loved Up community, so everyone can connect with you, check out your programs, see who you are. I'm encouraging a book over there. And she is, moving and shaking, but I really just appreciate you for being an active part of the Get Loved Up community. Appreciate you for everything that you're doing for yourself, for others, and the world. Thank you so much for getting loved up with us today.
Thank you so much. Blessings to everyone that has tuned in. It's been amazing.
Awesome. All right, y'all. That is Brialle Ringer. And thank you so much for tuning in to the Get Loved Up podcast. If you haven't already, please leave a review. A 5-star review helps us reach more people. When you leave that review, take a screenshot of it and email me, koya@koyawebb.com. And I got a little gift for you. Until next time, love yourself, love others, and love the planet. One day at a time, one breath at a time. Peace and love.
I just want to take a moment to say thank you for being part of the Get Loved Up community. I like to share topics and people making a positive impact in the world, and your feedback means the world to me. If you haven't already left a review, please leave a 5-star review and let me know what you want to hear more of on the show. I'm here for you, and together we're making the world a better place, one day at a time, one show at a time. Thank you for listening.